Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be painting these gorgeous pink peonies that I bought at Trader Joe's. I've got out all my paint and we're going to be using this fun Catalyst Wedge painting tool. It's been an adventure this year. Some of you have been really encouraging me to keep going and loosening up my paintings using this Catalyst Wedge tool. It's like a spatula. And you can't get fussy when you're painting a painting with something like this. So it's a great way to loosen up. I'll also be using a palette knife and a paintbrush, and we'll see what happens. We're going to paint these flowers, so can't go too far wrong painting pink peonies. So I hope you enjoy this lesson, and don't forget to share it with a friend, and I look forward to teaching you. Alrighty, so to start off, I bought these flowers, but because I'm painting on a square, I went and took a photo this morning and then I cropped it and put it on my iPad. So that's kind of a little hack that you can do if you're gonna paint something like this, if you want to do a different kind of angle on it. This is going to be more contemporary, so I feel like it's a good way to kind of loosen up, is to kind of take a photo and then crop it. So to begin, I'm just going to use a little bit of this Indian yellow and some of the quinacridone red. Oh yeah, and by the way, my colors are really simple. I've burnt sienna, primary, blue, white, quinacridone red, cad yellow, light, viridian green, sap green, and this is a gray green that's from this Liquitex Basics brand. So I try to buy really inexpensive paints for these because you use a lot of paint. So I'm just going to use a little, I put out a little bit of that glazing medium just to sort of keep the paint nice and thin, just for that initial layer. And I like to use the Indian yellow because it kind of creates a little bit more of a vibrant underpaint. So I'm just gonna underpaint with a bit of this, and then we'll use the spatula to create all the marks and the thick paint. I'm just sort of applying it with this large brush that I've had forever. I got it from Canada when I lived there. And it's been good forever. So I'm going to block in with that. And there's a little flower up here. And then there's some green. I'll put in a little bit of that using the Indian yellow and some sap. I'm just going to quickly block in a bit of the greens. And we'll go into all the detail using the Catalyst Wedge tool, just so you don't think I'm trying to cheat here and get off easy with the brush. But I've done the block-ins before with the Catalyst tool, and it can sometimes take a lot of time just to get the paint to move around. I'm going to use a little viridian up in some of these in the underpaint, just to get some cool greens. So there's some sap and viridian, just to have a variety in the underpaint. And I'm also going to use a little bit of that burnt sienna in that same mix, and I'm going to put a neutral, maybe a little bit of blue, and I'm just going to put a little bit of a neutral underpaint in there. So if you add a little blue and a little burnt sienna, just to get kind of something transparent and neutral in the background. I like to get rid of the white. Then later on, I don't have to look at it and go, oh darn, I've got all all the white spots showing through. Then you got to deal with it at the end. Okay, once you get that in there, you can take a little bit of your paper towel, and you can even, I have these Viva paper towels and they're kind of smooth, and you can just sort of wipe it a little bit. No different than if I was painting with oil and I would do a block in first with my turp and my oil paint. So it's similar format. So now it's gonna be sort of set, you know, and then you can add everything on top. All right, so this time I'm gonna use this butcher's tray just to kind of mix up some of my colors. Last time I was using it for everything, and it was so small, it was really difficult, but I was just trying to wing it so I could get the lesson done before everyone started to want me to drive them places and whatever, because I have teenagers. So I just thought I'll get it done quick. It'll motivate me to be even quicker with my paint. So I've got out, I've mixed a little quinacridone red with the burnt sienna. So I've got this nice warm color that you see in this reference photo here. You see all that nice warm rusty red color. You want to get that in there first, because you want those bright pink petals to show. So I'm going to work that around, and I start with the darkest part in the center there, looking at that sort of shape. I'm going to just pop that in there, and then I will go a little, I'm going thicker paint there, and then I'm grabbing off my main palette, I'm grabbing a little bit more and gonna mix it. This time less burnt sienna, because I want more of a pure pink, especially on these petals here. So I'm kind of looking at my reference. It's some of those large ones that kind of form like a cup around layers of these beautiful petals. And this tool, I will say, for out of all the flowers, I feel like it's really works well with the peony flower. Just the way you can make the loosest kind of brush strokes, and the peony has a lot of these really large petals. So kind of looking at it and going around and putting some of those marks in there. Yeah, I would say this works so great with the hydrangea flower and the peony flower, anything with sort of a large kind of mass to fill in. To use a real art word, you're kind of painting a mass subject and filling it in, and then it already looks pretty interesting. Even if you didn't know what it was, you could just assume it was some sort of rose or something. And we got this little one up here. And look at that. So instantly kind of pretty. And if I want a lighter petal, I can kind of scrape off some of the paint like that, and it looks really cool. Same with here. I'll kind of figure a way. We can try this edge or this edge. Let's see. Yeah, if I kind of make some really pretty marks. And I really want this one to sort of just sort of doodling even some of the edges of those petals, just to get the idea. Then I can always go back in and paint the thicker paint on it again. I like these ones that kind of fall down a little, so I can even kind of exaggerate those a little. Have one going off the canvas here. And even have this one kind of fallen apart a little. If it gets too far up your palette, your spatula, it gets too high up, I kind of wipe it on the edge of the butcher's tray and kind of scoop it off again, and I can go back at it again. Well, they look really good so far, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying it just, the effect of this tool with these peonies is something else. So I'm going to, before I go and add the highlights, I always like to get a little bit of that sap and put in, so you have, your eye can compare the values if you have something really dark next to the peony. So you can put in a few of those petals. So I'm just getting a little bit of that sap green that I had out. And I'm going to put in some of those little peony petals, kind of long and narrow. But remember, this is a painting, not a photograph, so feel free to, you know, make them part of your painting, you know, like I sometimes just will add one in a place that just feels like a good spot to put it. I'll put one down here, sort of ground that one. Gets a little tight there down at the bottom. You can always use your brush to kind of tweak it a little later. And okay, so I feel like that's pretty cool so far. And you can have some marks coming off there. So now when I go to add the highlight, it's going to look a lot better. I'm just going to wipe the spatula off so that I can kind of start working on adding some of the light pink highlights to the flower. So got out lots of white paint. I'm just going to load some of that onto my palette. Got a bunch of that quinacridone red. If you don't have quinacridone red, like a permanent rose or some other red, test it out and make sure it makes a good pink when you mix it with red. So I'm using quinacridone because it's very versatile. I can use it and make pinks really easy. So I'm just going to whip down kind of spontaneous, quick brush strokes to show those peony petals. We're just going kind of a mid-tone value, except for that white that got there, but that was sort of a happy accident, I would say. I'll just leave that. And making some more marks. In the center, you just want to get some of that pink and get it on the edge of your palette knife and just show the tops of some of those peony flowers. And remember, this is not a realism, this is really loose. So we don't need to worry too hard about how perfect. So I'm going to leave that for now. Get more of my quinacridone red and my white. Mix up another batch. And now we're going to focus on this one that's facing downwards. So I'm going to kind of pull the paint, try pulling it back And I'm going to try a few different ways. So maybe you can put some different brush strokes to get the different layers. And it's a lot of fun to try these things out because honestly, you can paint really fast too if you got really handy with this tool. You can cover a lot of grounds with it pretty quick. So especially if you're going to paint large paintings, it would be a lot of fun to do a big, big canvas with these peonies. Okay, and then up here, I'm going to load some more paint, more white and quinacridone. And I'm trying to keep this really simple because it's a whole new technique. And so we just want to make it kind of quick and easy, not worrying too much about how perfect these flowers actually look. We're not going for like my oil painting peonies are more, classically done. I'm going for a more loose look here. So you won't get everything exactly the way you want, but it's just so much fun. Applying it is actually very therapeutic, I think. So using something like this in your hand, it's almost like you're closer to the paint and the canvas. I guess the next step would be to use your hands, but I wouldn't endorse that because you don't want to touch paint with your hand. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit more there and a few more marks, and then we're going to kind of up the value a little to a lighter pink. So maybe a few more marks in the center there so it's not so. Okay, so I'm really liking that for sure. Maybe I'm actually starting to get good at this palette, this spatula. You guys have been, if you go back and watch my original videos, you'll see it's been a real experiment. So like I said, I hope you join me and try this, because if you don't really care and you just about how it turns out and you just enjoy the whole, even just the whole tactile sense of it, using something new like this to create a different style of painting, you're just going to have so much fun. I'm just going to load a bunch more of that white paint there. And I don't even care if it has a little bit of if it's not perfectly mixed and it looks like this, it can actually create some really interesting lines. So I'm going to do that. You can see it gives it a little bit of a variety in the brush stroke. So I'm just going to put a few of those highlights on like that. Woo, I really like that. Beautiful. So I'm just going to keep going. It's really like almost putting icing on a cake. So I never was good at that, but I really wanted to be, but it just never worked out. And it's actually way harder than painting. Making cakes and making icing look good is a lot harder than just making a painting, I think. So I'm just going to those edges and putting a little of that white, lighter pink. All right, I'm going to move down here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of that blue. I'm going to test it out first because I don't know if I like that blue too much, but we'll see. Maybe if I just add, it's very potent. The Liquitex Basics Primary Blue is super strong, so I just used a tiny bit to get that purpley pink. And just variety is the spice of life, you know. So you gotta just add a little, you gotta add a little bit of that shadow pink to the mix. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of that here and there as we look at the shadow more. Down here, put some of that purpley pink in there. Look at that. That's a lot of fun. But remember, don't go over the top with it, because then you'll start to cool your painting down so much that you lose all that warmth in the painting. So I'm going to leave it for now at that. And you can always add a few little cool highlights to the greens as well. So we're going to leave that, and I'm going to add a bit of that yellow in the center. So I'll go back to my messy paint palette here, and I could add a little bit of that Indian yellow and some of that cad yellow and just mix it up a little. And I'm just going to whip in a bit of those yellow stems, and same with over here. Up there, and that one's too small, so we'll leave that one alone. So just to have a little bit of those stems, there's so many of them in the actual flower. But if you go to put them all in, you'll kind of ruin, you'll overwork it, you know, and then you'll be sad that you did, because you'll ruin the painting here. So I'm just going to keep it a little bit of that detail. Then I'm going to add a little bit of Viridian to my cad yellow. And if you get it and it's too bright, just add some quinacridone red in there, and that'll dull the green right down. Or take a little burnt sienna, and then your green will really start to calm down. So we can go in and put a little bit more detail on the greens. Same thing, really loose and really free. Super easy to do if you just don't think too hard. And I love this green on top of this red. Maybe I'll try to I'll add that, hopefully if I remember to the video, I'll zoom in on this detail here, because it's really, really pretty combo of colors. So this is a really kind of warm green here we got going. And you can also do a little bit of a bluey green, and then add a tiny bit of white, and you'll get a nice kind of cool, kind of like a eucalyptus green, you know, that bluey gray green. And you can pop in a few bits of that, just to add some variety. Pop that into the shadows. All right, so I like that. So I'm gonna, maybe I'll add a little bit more. Actually, I'll leave it for now. So I don't want to overwork that either. So now you can go with a black background, or you could go with, you know, white even would be super cool. So if you were looking to put this in your house and you want it really modern, you know, you could go with a white background. Or I put out the green gray color straight out of the tube. The Liquitex Basics, really, really inexpensive. These paints are like $5 a tube. And I would just put a little bit of that gray down around the edges here and there. Keep it loose. And then I'm gonna lift this off here because it's too hard to work. that off there. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to that gray. And I kind of like the greeny color that shows through here and there, all the different greens. So not even going to worry too hard about how well it gets, you know, painted over. Keeping with the whole kind of loose feeling here, I'm just going to put in some strokes, really kind of loose and free. And then all right, I like the little bits of that green gold coming through, and it keeps it really free and loose and everything else. You could take a bit of that purpley pink that we were using for the low or the cool highlight, and just sort of pop a few little marks of that in the background just to get some color in the background. But you know, I really like the way this turned out, and I hope you enjoy it too. I'm just getting in the camera. I think it's a little low for me. And I'm just going to bring it up to the camera so you can see all the texture that's on there. It's probably one of my favorite of all of the ones that we've done. So I hope you give it a try. And I feel like it's easier. It looks probably more difficult, but it's actually one of the easier ones to do with the Catalyst Wedge tool. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed that lesson, and I look forward to teaching you in the future. So give it a try. Leave me a comment below if there's any flowers that you want to try it on, and I will definitely add it to my list of videos that I'm going to make. So hope you enjoy and have a great day, and happy painting.